Rand Paul went on Real Time with Bill Maher on Friday, and he basically agreed with Bill on the issue of ISIS and foreign policy and the drug war. But there's a moment in the discussion that's really interesting and telling. Listen to them on climate change.
I know you're from coal country, Kentucky, so obviously this is a bit of a sticky wicket for you. But I just want to know what your basic feeling is on climate change, because I know you're thinking of running for president, and in some states, you could get independents like me. I've said that. I am available to the Rand Paul campaign, but not if I don't think you're seeing this issue realistically. What is your view on it?
I think the best way to do this is like, Bill, I think you're fading out here. I'm not sure I can hear the question. No, I'll give you the straight poop on this. There's abundant evidence that carbon is increasing and has increased since the industrial age. All I ask for is that the solution has to be a balanced solution, and that you have to account for jobs and jobs lost by regulation. And I'm not against regulation. I think the environment has been cleaned up dramatically through regulations on emissions as well as clean water over the last 40 or 50 years. But I don't want to shut down all forms of energy such that thousands and thousands of people lose jobs. Plus, we're a growing population, and as we grow, we need more energy, and maybe cleaner energy will supplant less clean energy over time, and it already is. But I don't think that shutting down dramatically one form of energy is a good idea for an economy.
Well, that sounds like you're pretty open to renewable energy, which is great because, when you use the job excuse, the truth is that new forms of technology create jobs, not destroy jobs. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, yeah, and here's a good example of where I think we could work together on it. I have a new bill that's going to be coming out in the next month or so, and it's going to be called the Deregulation of Alternative Fuels. So I'm for trying to get the government out of the way of converting your trucks from diesel to natural gas or from gasoline to ethanol. Try to get the government out there and let the marketplace take care of this, because some of these fuels are actually cheaper too. And if they're cheaper, then people will go for a cheaper alternative that also is cleaner for the environment. So I think there are ways that we can find a middle ground on this.
Look out, Rand Paul is clever. That's not something that a lot of progressives or liberals or Democrats are going to want to hear, but that's the reality. This guy is not a stupid far-right clown who doesn't know how to nuance himself in certain situations. He's not Rick Perry. He's not Mike Huckabee. He's not Herman Cain. I think, honestly, he seems to be even more adaptable than John McCain, than Mitt Romney, who did flip-flop like a motherfucker, okay? But they did it in such an inartful way that it was obvious that they're just sleazy, lying politicians. Where Rand Paul, it seems like he's somewhat principled, and he's able to finesse his comments enough to the point where some people who are Democrats, some people who are progressives are going to go, that's not all bad. Just like Bill said right there. He's like, it doesn't seem like you're totally against this thing. Now, I have to say I'm slightly more skeptical on the issue of Rand Paul and his position on climate change than Bill is. Because, sure, I like the idea of deregulate the alternative energy industry idea, and that is like a really bipartisan type situation because Republicans like deregulation and the Democrats like alternative fuel sources. So it's a smart thing to do. But I think the situation right now with climate change is so dire that we don't just need to get the government out of the way of alternative fuels. I think we need to get the government to subsidize alternative fuels and to really give them a leg up, to really wean ourselves off of oil and natural gas and fossil fuels. And of course, one way to do that is to stop the government and the people in the government from taking so much fossil fuel money, lobbying money, and actually Rand Paul would agree with me on that point. But my plan is not just to get the government out of the way for this particular issue. It's so dire, and the survival of humanity depends on it. Let's be honest here. With all the reports, they're scarier and scarier as time goes by, and this is science. So I think we need to invest in green technology, renewable technology. Like if I was president, I would do some sort of a New Deal where that would be a giant part of the package, where we exhaustively, move down the road of solar and wind and thorium and all this different stuff. So I'm slightly more skeptical of Rand Paul on the issue of climate change than Bill Maher seems to be. But I think it is true that on the other issues, he may even be better than the Democrats on social issues. It's sad to say, but it's true. I think he's probably better on the drug war than most Democrats, better on foreign policy than most Democrats, because he's got a lot of his father in him in terms of non-interventionism. Let's largely mind our business. Let's end the empire. So it's interesting. Like I said, look out, because he's more clever than a lot of us originally gave him credit for.